Okay, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm really honored to be able to share my journey of OER authoring and remixing with you today. And I'm grateful for the introduction that Megan has provided to and the framework to understanding kind of my journey with OER authoring and remixing. Um, my background is that my name is Sarah Layton, by the way. I am an English language arts teacher at Mountain Heights Academy. Mountain Heights Academy is an all-online public charter school in the state of Utah. We serve grades 8 through 12. Some of the things that makes our online school unique is that we are the first secondary school founded on the principles of open content. So it's part of our mission statement to create high quality courses and then release them with a Creative Commons license. So any teacher that is hired at the school just knows that this is part of who we are. We create courses, we release them, they're open, people can look at them, judge them, use them, remix them, and that's just what we are. So for me, after 6 years of teaching here, it's just become kind of a way of life. But looking back, I can remember some of the insecurities and some of the hesitation that I had with making my work open and releasing it. Um, yes, and I'm going to create another screen. I'm going to create another slide that talks about this. So some of the I guess, initial worries or concerns when thinking about authoring and then sharing your resources with a Creative Commons license so that they're open is it's intimidating. You worry that people will judge you, that it's not good enough, that this is something that that people will critique and criticize, and it just feels scary to put your work out there for other people to view. It's also, you kind of feel, I don't know if you've ever had those resources or those lessons that really work and you kind of want to keep them for yourself. You think, if I release this out there, then other people will have it, then I won't look as good of a teacher, or I won't have something special. But I just want to let you know that a lot of those things can be turned into a way of those negatives, those concerns can be turned into positives. So one thing I like about knowing that my work will be open is that it helps me to up my game. It helps me to make sure that my resources are good resources, that my lessons not only work because they're fun and interesting to students, but also because I have thought about them. Do they align to the standards? Am I meeting standards? Am I actually meeting the needs of my students in the long term, not just for one day, one lesson? So it's helped me up my game and create resources that are high quality and worth sharing. But the other thing is, I've been able to get over some of that fear that um, I'll be judged, critiqued. If I have a spelling error, then people will say, what is she doing? Teaching English or whatever. So the thing to remember is that open resources, by their very nature, are not permanent. They can be revised, edited, remixed, and tinkered with so that they are fluid and they can evolve over time. So if you create a lesson one year, you use it, you release it and it's open, and you find out things that would have worked better, you can always go back and easily change and revise it so that the next time around it's a little bit better and a little bit better. So it's not like a textbook, it's not permanent, it's not set in stone. So those are some things to remember. And as I have learned through experience, these resources benefit me because it keeps me on my toes, it keeps things exciting, and it benefits my students and the educational community because these are resources that are evolving with the times, evolving with the standards, and meeting the needs of my students where they are, and also helping students in other educational communities. And I should also mention that I've been able to be, in addition to working for an all online school that focuses on open content, I've also had the opportunity to be a fellow with ISKME, where I was trained to use the OER Commons, which is this repository of open educational resources, and I will be kind of demonstrating some of those resources to you today. The first one I want to talk about is this opportunity I had to remix and collaborate and create a resource in the OER Commons. And I'd like to go back for a minute to what Megan was saying about reflecting on what you as a teacher need, or you as an educator or administrator. What are your needs? And how can open educational resources meet those needs? Because if it's not practical, if you don't see the immediate usefulness of a resource, it's not going to be something that you're going to be that excited about creating. But in this case, we wanted to create a resource. Our needs were that we wanted to create a resource that would be a way to combine math and ELA. So we had an audience of both math and ELA teachers, and these were teachers from elementary school through high school. So we needed to create something that would be beneficial for teachers of a variety of grades. We also needed to create a resource that was co-created by an English teacher and a math expert, and we wanted to find a way to tie the curriculum into something that was meaningful for our specific audience in this specific region, and in this case it was Hawaii, to make it something that they could actually relate to and get excited about. And then we wanted to also address a variety of learning styles. We wanted to reach kinesthetic and experiential learners in a way that it was exciting, hands-on, but that also met standards of writing, research, and so all of these things were our needs, and we wanted to make sure that we were meeting standards for both math and ELA through this process. So we had all of those needs, and we tried to address them by creating this one resource. So I'm going to open this resource now. This is opening up in the OER Commons. So this is something you can search and find in the OER Commons because it's been published there. It's called The Kitty Conundrum, the Environmental Impact of Feral Cat Reproduction. And this is actually, so we're going to click here to view the resource. This is actually a picture I took when I was on a hike in Hawaii. I was so shocked to see these cats and also chickens together, but eating kind of raw meat that someone had put out there out in the middle of nowhere. So these cats didn't belong to anyone. They were feral cats, and so we decided to create a resource that talked about the environmental impact of feral cats in Hawaii, but do some math research testing, kind of this environmental impact. So we started with a lesson abstract, our themes, essential questions, standards. We made sure that our resource was going to be addressing these standards as a way of backwards designing our resource. Some anchor Common Core standards, objectives for both math and ELA. We provided a text set for some research, and then we moved into some student tasks and some hands-on experiential learning. So as an introduction, this we had some research that showed that if it said the Department of Land and Natural Resources in Maui calculated that if a single unspayed female cat produces 2 litters per year, with 2.8 cats surviving each litter, she and her offspring can create 11.6 million cats over a 9-year period. So this is what the research says, and we wanted to see if students could prove whether that was true or not. So we tied this into a resource called Modeling Population Growth, Having Kittens. So we linked to an activity that is already in the OER Commons. We found this resource that was already there on modeling population growth, having kittens. And this is a lesson that walks students through trying to predict how many cats can be reproduced within a year, based on certain facts. And so the participants were able to stand up, get involved, try to predict, and there were some arguments. People got up and one group presented one scenario, another group got a different number, and they talked about it, and they tried to figure it out, and where did these ideas come from, at what point, are we talking, there was just different arguments. It was a really fun, exciting, hands-on experience. So that was the first step, the first activity. And then from that, we were then able to move into some research, and it could be taken further into a research paper. You could even do some research some projects with trying to understand, actually, to some service projects that could come out of this. For instance, here's a link to, so we linked to some research. Students were, I gotta fix that. Okay, anyway, sorry. So, so they were able to read this resource, and then I included a worksheet to help students talk about the history of feral cats and cite specific evidence, compile some evidence that they could use later in a research project. So that's just one example of using a resource, of creating a resource that would be useful for a specific audience. The next example I want to show, I skipped forward, is an example of student-created open educational resources. So in my 12th grade class, I teach the novel A Tale of Two Cities. And at first, this novel can be confusing to seniors. They feel like it's written in a different language, an Old English, and then each year I was asking students to do a project, a Tale of Two Cities project, and this project would be viewed by me, sometimes shared with the class, but then after the class was over, it went away, we never saw it again, we never used it again. And I kind of, as thinking about how to make this project more interesting and more impactful for the students, I came up with a plan to have students create OER that would be shared with future students and also published. And in this age of social media, students love to share, be recognized, and know that their work lives on after the course is over. Making stuff public is not an issue for students, most students these days. So this is a resource, and I'm just going to take you to it. This is also in the OER Commons. This is, so I start with an overview, and then that just explain that it's a collection of student resources to help other students. And here's our table of contents. And it's broken up by book. There are 3 different books in A Tale of Two Cities. And then within the books, it's broken up by the chapters. And for each chapter, eventually, we will have resources for each chapter of the book. So for instance, here's a video that a student made.
Welcome to A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. This is a summary of book 1.
So it's an excellent summary of the first book. And anyway, so this is a project I did last year. Now this year I will be able to share the link to this resource with my current students, and if they're having trouble with understanding book one or with understanding one of these chapters, they need some extra help, they can actually go and see what other students have created to help them. And then what we're going to do is actually add to this resource this year. So as you can see, there are some gaps. For instance, we talk about chapter 1, 2, but we skip 3 and 4. So this will be a year where students can fill in some of those gaps. It will add to this resource, and year after year, this resource will grow and be helpful to our current students and also students from other schools or teachers that are also teaching the same novel, because they can search A Tale of Two Cities within the OER Commons. This will pull up, and this may be helpful to them. But students love to be published, to know that their work is being viewed by others. And also, just the philosophy of it is, you know, we talk about open educational resources being open, but most of the time these are being created by educators, instructional designers, teachers. Why not also open that up to students as well? And that's kind of what I've tried to do with this resource. And so far it's been really successful and really exciting in my class. A couple things to just keep in mind is, if you're going to do this type of thing, making student work open, you want to make sure you're protecting the identity of the students, and that, for instance, if things are published in YouTube, I have the students send me the files and then I publish them in YouTube, so it's linked to me, not to this specific student. And we also, as a school, had a permission slip that we had students sign so that the parents were aware of what was going on here. One last example from the OER Commons is this argumentative research project, a step-by-step course. I, like most English teachers, teach the argumentative research paper, and I was at a conference talking about it, and I just mentioned that this was one of my resources that I had created. And I'll just open it up. This is the argumentative research project, a step-by-step course. And it has, you know, links to videos that I've created that kind of introduce the topic of how to choose a research project. So there's videos, there are articles that I'm having the students read, articles that I've linked to, and let's go to another page. There are also assignments. So, for instance, here's an assignment: choose and narrow your research topic. It's created in Google Docs that another teacher could make a copy of and use in their own classrooms. That's kind of a generic course that could be remixed and tinkered with by another teacher to meet specific needs of their classroom. And one of the teachers in the audience said, hey, you know what, that looks like it would be really useful in my class. I'm teaching a research paper. You know, we might have different requirements for topics or length requirements, depending on the age of the students, a grade level, but she was able to use this resource in her own classroom. And the way she did that was by clicking here to remix the resource. And then she makes a copy. She made a copy of the resource. Now she's not changing the original. Now she can change it. This is now her copy, and she can use it. Anyway, now she can use it to meet the needs of her own classroom. And what's exciting for me as a teacher is when somebody does or as an author, is that when somebody does remix your resources in the OER Commons, you get a notification that somebody else is using it, and it's kind of just gratifying to know that the work that you're putting out there is being useful to other educators across the country and across the world. One last story I wanted to talk about is kind of an inspiring story about how far your educational resources can actually reach. This is a story, I don't know if many of you remember, I'm sure you remember, there was a massive earthquake in Christchurch, New Zealand in 2011, and much of the infrastructure was destroyed. So students didn't have a place to go to complete their schooling that year. And the way they were able to meet the needs of students was to set up computer labs, and then the school district there searched online and found our open courses from our school. And then they used these courses in their computer lab to give students there an online option to continue their education. So one of those courses was my composition course, and students in New Zealand were using this composition course to complete their education for the year. And we wouldn't have known about this except for one of those educators visited Utah, tracked down our school and our director, and told her about it, and then they made a newspaper article about it that you can read here. But it was really inspiring to know that these children that who had their schooling completely disrupted by a natural disaster were able to complete their year by using some of the stuff that we had shared, that we'd created for ourselves, and we never knew that, and we didn't even realize that they were using it and finding it, so useful in another country. So that's just a little inspiration to put your stuff out there. You never know who it's going to affect. And just in closing, I'd love to connect with any of you that are interested. There's my Twitter handle, and I will be tweeting out my slides using the hashtag OER and GoOpen hashtags, and I'd love to connect. There's my email address, and just let me know if you have any questions.